Good evening. This is Professor Campoletta. I want to give you a couple of overview items about the way that I've structured this Blackboard site for the public speaking course, but also a little bit of overview information about the prompt. Now, to find everything in this course for any speech assignment, you're going to click here for info on speeches. And the way I've organized it is you've got the rubrics and the prompts for each assignment, and then resources. Rubric and then resources. The first thing you should do after you've created your Google Documents file folder, at some point before you deliver your first speech, is make sure that you have completed 2 of these assessments, screen captured the results, and uploaded them to your Google Drive. That's your virtual file folder where all the work in this course is housed. I find this particularly helpful. When I was an undergrad, I was on debate scholarship, but I was a C student because I did not know how I learned. I'm very much a hands-on learner. I'll ask you a million questions, and then once I learn how to do it, move on, and I will not need you anymore and won't even bother you again. But until then, I'm going to hound you and I have to talk it through. So I know I'm a hands-on learner. I also know I'm very visual. So I struggle with content management systems unless I myself have built it. And so that's kind of why I have some bents on how I teach. Moreover, what I learned in grad school, thanks to Dr. Roseanne Manzik, is she said, Lisa, you need to take notes while you read. And if you take notes while you read, it will filter into your brain. And I've learned that also memorizing things for professional acting and other stuff I'm engaged with. This is the personality styles test, the MBTI. And you'll get your 4 letters once you finish this test. I would highly recommend that you look up the 4 letters so you know how you work with other people. And I'll go into that later. This is kind of cute and funny. It's what would you be in the Middle Ages? Now for this assignment, the policy speech, I've got 3 elements uploaded. I've got the old school assessment when I taught it in the face-to-face classroom setting. I've got the rubric, and then I've got the digital rubric, and I pretty much have integrated these 2 documents here. This is pretty much what you're going to need to know for this assignment. You're going to create 1 informative and 1 persuasive speech assignment. Right now we're focusing on the informative. Be aware that it's 20% of your grade, and it's very important to pick a topic that you are highly passionate about, that you're researching, because what I've found is you're going to want to crank this out. You're going to be able to do a brain dump very quickly, and moreover, it will come across in the delivery that you are totally excited, you're amped, and you want to share that information with your audience. Make sure that your supportive material adapts to the needs of your audience. So if you're giving a speech on ACL surgery, you're not talking to a group of surgeons. You're talking to a group of students enrolled at Austin Community College. So if you're using highly technical information, like the construction, how the knee, what the physiology of the knee, make sure you explain elements of the knee before you get into how reconstruction works. And oftentimes you will do that by definitions, vivid examples, as well as visual aids, and then any data that you want to throw in there. I've got some examples of exemplary past student work, and I'm going to upload more for you. It is important when we have our one-to-one student conference that you have your best foot forward for your speech and not just a couple of ideas written down on a piece of paper. If you show up to that conference with a couple of ideas written down on a piece of paper, your grade will begin with no higher than a 70. So it's important. The more information you give me and the more prepared you are, the more information I can give you to make those corrections. In the past, I've told students, hey, I think your speech is only 3 minutes. And then quite frankly, when they deliver the speech, it's only 3 minutes. So I'm here to help you as your consultant and your coach use that workshop to your benefit. Now, when you start to prepare your research, make sure if it's a current event topic that it's recent research. So if you're giving a speech on something that's it's viral on social media or it's covered extensively in the press, make sure that research is from this month, if not the week that you deliver your speech. But if you're going to give a speech on the penny, it's not necessary to have a speech that's, or some research that's from that, situated from that month or that year or even, that week, because there may be an exemplar book about the penny that was published 10 years ago and you may want to use that. There's a variety of organizational patterns that you can employ, and these are all right here. And then, of course, and I talk about those in the different video lectures that I have uploaded to YouTube. The other thing is, it's very important to rehearse your speech. A lot of times what I've found is someone who's given hundreds of speeches over the course of probably thousands, over 1,000 speeches in the course of 30 years, whether it's in the academic debate context or individual performances like original oratory, extemporaneous speaking, political debates, or even like TV ads with one of like those teleprompters, is the more you rehearse, the better you'll get at your delivery, like your facial channels, your vocal variety, your volume, your articulation, pronunciation of technical words, and your sources. But also, you'll find if you say it, you're going to correct your outline, and you'll come up with better ways to present it that didn't come across that way. It will come across better, quite differently verbally than when you write it. So when you present your speech, it's very important that you rehearse your speech. And oftentimes you'll come up with different, maybe some jokes or ways that you can explain things, and you may even make some manipulations to your organizational pattern. Sometimes I've found over the years is that a student will come prepared with a speech and they go, you know what, and they'll literally throw it in the trash can. They're like, I don't want to give this speech anymore. I don't like it. I don't think it's going to go over well in front of my audience. And I'm like, good for you. You can now have an extra week because you recognize that. And I do the same thing. I may be in like the city council chambers and I'm like, ugh, Capoletta, that is way too scathing. You need to put it through the tone it down grinder and come up with a joke or an example, or sometimes I'll just go online and I'll find a quote. So I'll find like a quote on leadership or corruption or something like that, and it comes across better than if I had just like slammed the individuals involved that are the target of my speech. The other thing is, do a brain dump. Whether you carry around a notebook or some note cards and you write down all your ideas. For me, it oftentimes ends up on a piece of mail or something I grab, and I just like do a brain dump. And I have arrows and circles and crazy handwriting, and it eventually gets typed up. You may be one of those spiral notebook people, or you may just open up a Google Doc. I've talked about the different types of organizational patterns for informative speeches in my video, and I'll cover these in another lecture. But for now, we're focusing on the informative speech. And by the time you get to this prompt is going to be completely saturated in your brain. Now remember, the bulk of the grading for this assignment is here. If you come ready to rock and roll with your written documentation, that means that you've already rehearsed it, which means you will slam dunk your presentation. Now we're in the digital environment, and I'm allowing y'all to do as many takes as you want. So if it takes you 30 takes, and sometimes when I used to shoot a video blog or I've done some of these teleprompter speeches for my campaigns, I'll nail it first take. And that happens a lot in the acting industry, but sometimes it takes me, well, usually because I have laughing attacks, but sometimes it takes me like, 5 or 6 or maybe 10 takes. So and if you need to like step away and take a break, do that, because you've got the luxury of your own context where you feel comfortable to present that speech. All of the speeches are due on the same day as exemplified by the course syllabus deadline. So this is unlike my regular classes where everybody shows up, they write their name on the board, and pretty much we don't do it by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. People just put their names up there, and if someone gave a speech on vegetarianism, the next speaker may want to talk about the paleo diet, and they may reference the previous speaker, which is something to me which is always a bonus, because that shows continuity, it creates a speaker-audience connection, and quite frankly, it provides homage to your other speaker. If you want to dress up, if you're giving a speech about the Boston Red Sox or your favorite sports team and you want to wear your Boston Red Sox cap and all that, that's an extra 3 points. I always, when I do political debates, I go to the hairstylist, I get my hair straightened, I get all dressed up, I go to HEB, and people go, Lisa, or they call me LMC, I didn't even recognize you. And I always kind of laugh because I'm literally a different character. As soon as she does my hair, he does my hair, and they turn me around the chair and I look at myself, I'm literally like a different person. And I'm just focused. Not that I'm not in the regular world, but I'm just so much more like toned down and muted. And it allows me to kind of use that physical self-concept. So when I get into like a social self-concept, I'm not, like going a million miles an hour like I usually do as a former academic debater. And I'm able to connect with my audience as, quote, Cappoletta the candidate versus Cappoletta the activist or Cappoletta the former debater, that kind of thing. I literally perform better when I dress up. One time I had to meet with the board, it was like a real estate group or something, like young professionals. And the city had, not, my joke was the city did this on purpose, but they didn't. The city cut the water off by accident to my hairstylist place. I show up, and I show up everywhere early, like an hour, 30 minutes early. To me, it's like a rhetorical hit, right? I'm a Sicilian, and I'm never late for my rhetorical hit. Well, I get there early to get my hair done, and they have a sign. And I'm like, well, actually, there was no sign. I can't remember, but I'm like calling my friend who owns the place. Where is everybody? And I have no hair skills, y'all. My hair was all like crazy. And I had to go to that thing because they couldn't open shop because the city cut their water off. And I did fine, but I would have felt a lot more like better if I would have had my hair straightened, but it's all good. I didn't even put in a messy bun. It was all like frizzy and crazy, but whatever. I did a great job. And so that's one of those things though. I would have been more, and because I showed up early to the hairstylist, it gave me more time to figure out what the heck to do. And pretty much I just ended up going there with my frizzy hair and just mingled with people instead. I just roll with it, Cappoletta, mingle. I have a funny joke I'll tell you later about when I participated in Austin's Funniest Comics. I'll tell you the story later. And I showed up well, I'll tell you now. I showed up early and I was in the wrong room. and so what I should have done is I should have said, I'm the Yahoo from San Marcos, Texas, and I've been in the wrong room for the last. I should have poked fun at myself, but I try to like stay with my shtick. And I should have just adapted to the situation. So in addition to adapting to your audience, which is something we really talk about, I should have adapted to what had happened and rolled with the punches. And sometimes you're going to have to do that. So that may mean poking fun at yourself. Now, oftentimes I've seen speakers in my class